I mean, the dissent. Yeah, but I don't want to live in the Civil War.
I agree with that.
You know what?
Well,
but you seem like you purposely want to set up this dichotomy between, oh, this is a blue state and that's a red state, and I don't want to live in that country. I like Florida.
I'm with you. And by the way, I like Florida as well. I like all these states. I completely agree.
California has rules about every nitpicky thing you can imagine. If you don't believe me, try parking in Santa Monica. Or starting a business, or getting your solar power hooked up. You can't fly a kite in a park in Beverly Hills, or ride a bicycle, or climb a tree. But for 30 years, Nestle took water out of the San Bernardino National Forest under a permit that expired in 1988. And Coca-Cola is somehow allowed to take water from municipal water supplies, stick it in bottles, and sell it back to the taxpayers who own the water to begin with. 395,000 regulations.
Bill Maher just did what almost nobody in liberal media seems willing to do anymore. He confronted Gavin Newsom in a way that social media users are calling a public takedown, and he did not soften a single point. There was no easing in, no careful warm-up, just a direct challenge from the start. Now let's get back to the video.
They know. They know. We are the most regulated state in the nation with more than 395,000 regulatory restrictions. It is a constant nightmare of inspectors and permits and fees. In this state, if you get to your car 10 seconds after the parking meter expires, it's already gone and you'll never see it again. California has rules about every nitpicky thing you can imagine. If you don't believe me, try parking in Santa Monica. Or starting a business, or getting your solar power hooked up. You can't fly a kite in a park in Beverly Hills, or ride a bicycle, or climb a tree. But for 30 years, Nestle took water out of the San Bernardino National Forest under a permit that expired in 1988. And Coca-Cola is somehow allowed to take water from municipal water supplies, stick it in bottles, and sell it back to the taxpayers who own the water to begin with. 395,000 regulations, but somehow that slipped through the cracks?
395,000 regulations. Read that number again. At that point, critics argue, it does not even feel like a state anymore. It feels like a maze of paperwork with a coastline. People online have described California as one giant office of no permit, no parking, no building, no business, no easy anything. And Maher's point in that clip lands because of the contradiction he was highlighting. The same government that can fine someone for standing too close to a parking meter somehow, at least according to criticism, may have missed the detail that Nestle was allegedly drawing water from a national forest under an expired permit for 30 years. That is the kind of setup critics call regulation on the surface, but something very different underneath.
Now, as far as the red tape, I see that they're all, Newsom, Bass, they're all saying, we're going to cut red tape, as if they're doing us a favor. My question is, well, if you can do it now, why don't you always do it? Obviously, it can be done. It's not a favor to us to cut the red tape. Why do we live in this state, in this red tape nightmare, the other times of the year when we're not on fire? I always think there's a middle of the road, actual practical solution to everything. And for this, I would say, was California's uber progressive politics the cause of this fire? Of course not. Did it impede them to some degree? Absolutely. That's the margin of error I'm saying we can't abide by any.
There it is, the question so many Californians have been waiting to hear addressed. If Newsom can cut through the red tape during wildfire emergencies, critics ask why that same urgency cannot show up during the rest of the year. Some viewers believe that one line undercuts the explanations California Democrats have leaned on for years. The rules are not there simply because they have to be. They are there because the government chose to make them that way. And that is really the heart of Maher's point. According to that criticism, the regulatory maze is not some unavoidable accident. It is a decision. And that distinction is exactly what makes the moment hit so hard. And that is why people online are reacting so strongly. It is not just about one sharp exchange. It is about the bigger pattern viewers say they keep seeing, where the rules seem endless until someone asks who actually benefits from them. For critics, that is what made Maher's point land so hard, because it turned a broad complaint into something concrete and hard to ignore. Social media users framed it as one of those moments where the conversation stops being about talking points and starts being about accountability. Whether people agree with his stance or not, the clip gave them a clean example of the frustration that has been building for a long time, and that is exactly why it is still getting attention.
Now you've opened an interesting can of worms, Mr. Gaffigan. So, first of all, you think Gavin Newsom is running for president?
I think he is the likely alternative.
That's interesting because I like Gavin a lot. Now, I hope he runs for president because I think getting to the national stage would help with the one thing I have trouble with him about, which is sometimes he's way too cuckoo, woke left bullshit. You know, the California shit.
It was the mayor of San Francisco, right?
Yeah, but you know, that was a different time, and fighting for rights was, you know, a great thing.
Yeah.
At a time when that fight was still going on and needed to be fought on that level.
I remember moving to New York in the early 90s.
Way too Google woke left. That is what a Newsom supporter said on national television, with the smile of someone who sounded friendly, but was clearly done pretending. Online, some viewers read that as the kind of blunt criticism many Democratic strategists may quietly agree with, even if they would never say it out loud. And in Maher's view, this is exactly the kind of baggage that could follow Newsom onto the national stage. He can polish the suit. He can polish the hair, but he cannot polish out San Francisco.
And then whenever I read 80% of the water goes to agriculture, almonds.
Right.
No one ever asked you about almonds? Oh, I'm going to ask you about almonds. We grow a boatload of
I'm
almonds.
well aware.
You know how much water it takes?
Any gallons?
1,900 gallons to grow a pound of almonds. Come on, man. Take on big almond.
Big on.
I mean, it's not like we don't have the water.
No. You're right about it. It's not that we don't have the water. That said, you know, the last couple of years were tough. I mean, it's also where the water's falling and we're not capturing it. And we're not capturing those extreme years with these atmospheric rivers. Wets are getting a lot wetter, dry's drier, hot's getting a lot hotter. And so we've got to modernize our conveyance system. We've got to modernize our storage, not just above ground, but below ground. And so that's a big part of our focus and frame, including desalination plants. We have 20 projects just on desal that we're working on today. So we put out a detailed water strategy that includes, by the way, getting that Delta Conveyance project back up and operational, and includes the first above ground off stream storage facility in half a century in the state, which, by the way, is being aided by a regulatory package I pushed forward to reduce red tape in the state of California and address the permitting quagmires that you rightfully point.
1,900 gallons of water to grow 1 pound of almonds. That figure sounds less like a farming policy and more like a system that some critics say has completely lost its balance. Critics argue that California keeps exporting almonds to the world while its own residents are told, again and again, to tighten their belts during droughts and even watch how much water they use for the smallest things, like brushing their teeth. And Maher's point about big almonds lands because, to a lot of viewers, it taps into a familiar frustration. The same politicians who say they care deeply about water, critics claim, seem unwilling to take on the industry said to use around 80% of it. In Maher's view, that is the whole California problem in one crop. Ordinary people get blamed for the shortage, while the powerful interests tied to it stay protected.
Well,
You're not able to actually encourage and find that common
No, it's
ground.
stuff like there's a new law in this. I think we have way too many regulations and laws that we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral
Oh, the toys.
toy department.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So you think that's
No, but it's
silly?
interesting.
You think that's a silly thing that
What was interesting?
with too much government there?
That's an interesting one because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they're the ones making a case for that. They're already moving in that direction.
Why did you make a law about them?
Well, they supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support from the industry itself. But I understand how that's exploited, and good people can disagree. But that's not something we woke up and said, this is a top priority for the state, when we know the top priorities are homelessness, housing, the issues of crime, quality of life, and issues related to regulation and taxes, which are all top of mind.
The gender-neutral toy department came up live on television, right in front of Newsom, and his response, according to critics online, only made the situation look worse than the law itself. Some viewers said this was the moment he came across, like the kind of disconnected California politician people have already been complaining about. The state is often cited by critics as #1 in homelessness, #1 in taxes, and #1 in out-migration. So people are asking why the government is focused on something like how a department store lays out the toy aisle. That is exactly why Maher's line, "Way too Google woke left," landed so sharply with so many viewers. That is why the clip keeps getting pulled apart online. For a lot of people, it was not just a jab about one issue. It felt like a broader argument about whether California's leaders are focused on the problems regular people actually notice, or on the kind of messaging that plays better in political circles. And once that question was out there, viewers were quick to connect it to every other criticism they have been repeating for months. What made the moment stick is that Maher did not sound like he was trying to be polite about it. He sounded like someone repeating what a lot of frustrated viewers have already been saying in their own way, just on a much bigger stage. That is why the reaction online has stayed so loud, because people see the exchange as more than a one-off television clash. They see it as a snapshot of a larger divide between public image and public frustration. And that contrast is exactly what keeps the conversation moving. From there, the debate shifts from the joke itself to what it says about the mood around Newsom, and why even a short exchange can turn into a much bigger culture argument when people feel like it hits a nerve.
But here's,
I feel like the last couple of years you've like purposely picked this fight with the red states. I mean, the DeSantis. Yeah, but I don't want to live in the Civil War.
I agree with that.
You know what?
Well,
but you seem like you purposely want to set up this dichotomy between, oh, this is a blue state and that's a red state, and I don't want to live in that country. I like Florida.
I'm with you. And by the way, I like Florida as well. I like all these states. I completely agree. I don't want to have a state of mind that's a constant fight or flight. We've gone through so much. We've been polarized and traumatized. This has been a tough 5-6 years across the globe, not just in this country. That said, I'm not going to sit back and watch. You made the point just a moment ago in your monologue. You got folks out there trying to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, America in reverse.
Maher basically told Newsom to sit down live on TV, and Newsom laughed, maybe because he did not have much room to push back. For critics online, this gets to the larger issue with Newsom, who, they say, has spent years taking shots at governors hundreds of miles away instead of focusing on the state he actually runs. Florida, Texas, or anywhere a camera is rolling and a Republican is in charge. Meanwhile, San Francisco is still being described by critics as a city weighed down by tents, needles, and open substance scenes. In Maher's view, this is not leadership. It looks more like a national audition.
I mean, we had some controversial figures on, I'll acknowledge that, and Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and some others, but you're right. I mean, this idea that we can't even have a conversation with the other side.
You have to. They won.
Thank you. That's it, bottom line. And by the way, or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now. We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense. And I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground and not take cheap shots. I'm not looking to put a spoke in the wheel of their, or at least a crowbar in the spokes of their wheel to trip them up, to your point. And I think it's important. Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than we should be. This notion of cancel culture, you've been living it. You've been on the receiving end of it for years and years and years. That's real. And Democrats need to own up to that. They've got to mature about it.
Newsom said it out loud, and that 27% number was part of the clip people kept focusing on. To critics online, it sounded like the moment a top Democratic figure openly suggested that his party's brand may be in rough shape. And that is the part many viewers said Democrats cannot ignore. The 27% figure was not pulled from some Fox News poll either. It came from NBC, which made the reaction even harder for supporters to brush aside. According to online commentary, the number has also been moving lower. In Maher's view, when your own would-be nominee is describing the brand as toxic while still trying to pitch it to the country, that does not exactly look like a comeback plan.
You go, okay, he's signaling to his base with the deep knee cross.
Back up here. I totally understand your point about signaling, and I think you're right. I did not get the memo on Newsom's legs.
Oh.
What is it? Is this a thing? Is this somewhere on the Tuckergram that I missed?
No.
Newsom's signaling people with his legs?
If you see pictures of Newsom with the leg cross, it is that. Okay, first off, guys would do this a lot.
I do it.
I do it too.
Because I'm a guy.
And then women would do a sort of this.
Yeah.
But the
bitches.
deeper the blue you get, the deeper, more compressed, the further it gets across. When you see pictures of Newsom with his legs crossed, it's insane. And the thing that's funny is Trump sits with his knees apart, and then he makes a diamond with his thumb and forefinger, and he puts it in front of his nutsack, and he says, focus on this.
The so-called deep knee cross is where the analysis has ended up, and that alone tells you how closely people are reading every move. Adam Carolla is now, at least according to critics online, breaking down Gavin Newsom's body language for signs of political performance. The strange part, some viewers said, is that Carolla may not be missing much. To them, Newsom seems to treat every camera moment like a staged appearance, from the leg crossing, to the hand gestures, to the pauses that look carefully timed. To Maher, all of that gets folded into one image, a politician who appears to be performing leadership rather than actually showing it. And then comes the part where Newsom's own words become the punchline that carries the whole monologue forward. And that is why the clip keeps living on online, because it gives critics something they can point to and say, this is exactly what we mean. For supporters, it is just a sharp TV moment taken out of context. But for everyone else watching the back and forth, it feels like a bigger argument about image, optics, and whether polished messaging can really cover up public frustration for long. That tension is what gives the exchange so much staying power. People are not just reacting to one line or one laugh. They are reacting to what they think the moment says about how Newsom presents himself when the pressure is on. And once a clip starts getting read that way, every small detail gets magnified, every pause gets picked apart, and every reaction becomes part of the story. So the conversation does not stay on the surface for long. It keeps drifting toward the same larger question, whether this was just a funny exchange on TV or another sign that the audience is paying much closer attention than politicians might like.
I heard Gavin use this phrase, culturally normal. Did you see that?
No.
He was asked about, I guess, how the Democrats can win. And I think that phrase is going to bubble up. He said they have to learn to be more culturally normal. How do you think that? Put some meat on those bones. What does that mean?
We used to be the party of the factory floor, and now we're the party of the faculty lounge. And I say this, I'm a faculty member at UVA. But this elitism, this intellectual elitism on my side is so off-putting. And the sanctimony, the judgmentalism. I saw Andy Bashir recently. He told me that someone talked to him about, and the phrase was, justice-involved populations. Do you have any idea what that is?
Prisoners.
Prisoners. I grew up in a prison town. We did not call them justice. We call them crooks, prisoners, convicts, inmates.
I think Gavin made a big mistake with his reading comment.
Newsom used the phrase culturally normal to describe what Democrats, in his view, need to become. And if you read that slowly, you can see why social media lit up. Critics online framed it as an unguarded admission that his party may be out of step culturally, and they treated it like a major opening for the other side. Paul Begala's line about the party of the faculty lounge instead of the factory floor also got a lot of attention, with viewers calling it one of the sharpest summaries of the modern Democratic Party to ever air on national TV. And then there is the language problem. When activists start using terms like justice-involved populations instead of plain English, A lot of people feel the message gets buried under academic wording. To critics, that is exactly how a party can lose everyday voters, by sounding more like a seminar than a conversation regular Americans actually want to hear.
And I just think that, I actually know Nicki Minaj. She's now, as you know, very Republican. But I think that she pointed out, this aspect of politicians make these comments and they're not themselves.
What are you referring to? Tell the mayor.
Well,
he was talking to the mayor of Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote him, but basically the implication was he wasn't, good at
He was
reading,
he was trying to say, I'm one of you.
Yeah.
So he basically said, I'm dyslexic. I don't read very good like you guys.
Yeah,
and
it's insulting, right? It's
insulting, and it's also a function of when you're on a book tour running for president, you do a million events a day. Your brain is fried at 8 o'clock at night, and you're trying to not step on a landmine, and you do.
Newsom's comment, which critics online interpreted as implying the mayor of Atlanta could not read on tape in front of a national audience, immediately raised eyebrows. To those viewers, it came off like the kind of "I'm one of you" moment that can backfire fast, because it may suggest a politician who feels disconnected from the community he is trying to speak to. In Maher's view, that is what happens when an entire career starts to feel like a performance. You stop sounding like a regular person and start sounding like someone running every word through a political filter. At that point, every sentence turns into a strategy. Every joke feels like a risk, and ordinary voters can pick up on it from miles away.
Out here in California, pulling off in his own way what I think he wants to. He's being known more for trolling Trump on his podcast or with other interviews than what he's actually doing in the state of California. They think that's leadership because they don't have it. They know what they're doing. These politicians know. They know where the money is. They know how to get some of it too. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene came into office, she was worth a couple of $100,000 according to the reports. How the hell you leave departing and you worth $25 million? Where'd it come from? I work every day. I make a pretty good salary. I ain't making $25 million working on Capitol Hill with a salary that's less than $400,000 by accident. Somehow, some way, lobbyists up on Capitol Hill, you vote in one way or another, making sure that you assuage their concerns and appeal to them and all of this other stuff. And in the meantime, you're getting paid, but the American people ain't. That ain't an accident.
How do you really feel?
That ain't an accident. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Stephen A. Smith said it live on national television, and the clip quickly got people talking. Newsom is being known for one thing in this moment, according to critics online: trolling the other side on his podcast instead of focusing on California's biggest problems, like homelessness and day-to-day governance. Some viewers argued that the numbers seem to back Stephen A. up in a pretty harsh way. California has spent an estimated $20 billion on homelessness between 2019 and 2025. And the homeless population has reportedly risen by 32% during Newsom's time in office. That's roughly from 108,000 people to more than 181,000 today. To critics, that does not look like a crisis he is battling. It looks like one he has been overseeing. And that is why the reaction keeps spreading beyond just one clip. For a lot of viewers, the moment was not only about Newsom or Maher. It was about what the exchange seemed to reveal about politics right now: polished messaging on one side and growing public impatience on the other. That is the part people keep circling back to, because once a public figure gets labeled as overly scripted, every answer starts getting judged through that lens. Online, critics are using the clip as shorthand for a much bigger frustration. Supporters, meanwhile, are pushing back and saying people are reading too much into a few sharp lines from a TV conversation. But even that split tells you why the moment stuck. It did not just land as entertainment, it landed as a kind of Rorschach test, where everyone saw the version of the story they already believed. And when that happens, the conversation stops being about the joke itself and starts becoming about trust, image, and whether voters still buy the polished version being sold to them.
Because obviously he's running for president and Josh Shapiro is running for president. And I mean, Josh Shapiro, he was here last week. Yeah. He has a really good story to tell about his state. Now, I like Gavin a lot, but that's a lot harder story to tell.
Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, is a Democrat Maher has openly said he prefers on national television. And that sends a very clear signal. When one liberal figure gets a public nod from Bill Maher and another gets little more than a shrug, people are bound to notice. Shapiro, in this framing, has a stronger case to make. Newsom, critics argue, has a list of explanations. Shapiro points to a state that seems to be functioning. Newsom, on the other hand, is often tied by critics to California's high tax burden and the state's heavy outmigration numbers. In Maher's view, the contrast seems pretty easy to spot.
We're going to hold this hostage, and and you're right, the people are the ones who pay. But I mean, you mentioned our governor. He used the words culturally, what was it, culturally normal. He said the party needs to get more culturally normal.
He needs to get more culturally normal.
What is
it's just the truth. It's just the truth. I actually like Gavin Newsom a little bit anyway, but it's just the truth.
I like him. What does that mean to you, culturally normal? What do you think he means? What does it mean?
I do not know what he means, but I don't. But I will tell you, I mean, that again, I come from Michigan, where like the average person just is a very pragmatic, like put your head down and wants to work.
Right.
That is it. And so I will be honest, we made hats at the end of my last campaign that just said Team Normal. I don't give if you're a Republican or a Democrat, an independent, just like live in the zone of practicality. And the far right and the far left live in a different universe.
Stephen A. Smith's response was blunt, as he reportedly said, Newsom needs to get more culturally normal. Critics online say that line may stick with Newsom for a long time, because his own effort to sound relatable ended up becoming the punchline. In Maher's view, that kind of moment is exactly why voters keep drifting toward practical leaders and away from people who come off as overly polished. Michigan wants leaders who fix things. Ohio wants leaders who fix things. Pennsylvania wants leaders who fix things. And, in Maher's own framing, the far left and the far right are living in a completely different world.
Are you a results-driven guy?
No, I like to think, watch things fall apart.
I mean,
of course
you wouldn't build a show that you build and win at the levels you won, for decades if you weren't results-driven, right? I mean, you're Bill Maher,
What do you mean? What's the point about results?
That's exactly where I'm going with you. So results-driven guy.
Right.
What areas has Newsom won in? You said he's a winner.
Winner of the election. He could win the election.
But based on what, though? Do you want results? Like, what has he done to California to say he's a winner?
Oh, God. I don't know. It's too...
Bill, you're a smart
guy. You know what?
Guy.
He made it rain, okay, dude? It wasn't raining.
Someone who said that. He said, great job.
It wasn't raining, and now it's raining, so he's got my vote.
Okay,
you know what?
Respect. I mean,
I don't know. I don't follow the news. It's a character
Bill,
I play on television.
He said Newsom made it rain, and that was basically the answer. That was the full defense Maher could offer for Newsom's record. When the conversation turned to what Newsom had actually accomplished, not the podcasts, not the campaign talk, Maher seemed to come up empty, then tossed out a joke about the weather. Critics said that was the most revealing moment of the whole episode, because there really was not much else to say. California's homeless population has reportedly grown by nearly a third during his time in office, according to some discussions online. State deficits have been discussed at around $125 billion over 4 years. Businesses are leaving, families are relocating, and regulations keep piling up, critics have claimed. In Maher's view, the Democratic Party can nominate whoever it wants in 2028, but the California record is still the California record, and no amount of hair gel, deep knee crossing, or culturally normal catchphrases is going to change that. Gavin Newsom made it rain. If this exchange stood out to you, like, subscribe, share, comment, and see you on the next one.